Welcome to the channel, guys. My name is Frank Macaluso, and we're going to be doing another episode of the E31 S85 swap behind me. Today we're going to be finalizing the tie rod application as it relates to the rear mount inverted right-hand drive rack and pinion steering rack. Now this episode pairs very nicely with the E24 LT1 that you can see up there. There are tie rods that we're going to be doing on that as well. Concurrently, we can show you the differences between the two applications and why it's very different to discern the difference between the two. So today we're going to be working on final installation of that tie rod assembly, how to offset the tie rod, how to clock it into place, and how to understand how it affects not only bump steer, but accrement as well. Stand by, guys. Thanks. So what is this that you might be asking yourself? Well, this is both sets of tie rods for the E31. Here we have one that's basically just been kind of welded up, at least tacked on. And here are our custom CNC printed 3/16 inch thick Wolftech fabrication extenders. These are basically this, except it's going to be looking something like that instead. So we're going to be removing this. We're going to be facing this edge off, and we're going to be assembling and final welding these puppies on to both of these assemblies. Now, this is somewhat of a complex assembly, but it makes sense. The tie rod itself is fully adjustable, just like stock, where we have a female thread on one end, a left-hand thread on one end, and a right-hand thread on the other, such that when you turn the middle bar, it'll bring both of them in or expand or contract either one of them. We have a tie rod end, which is a female 1/2 inch 20, fine thread. Fine thread is very, very important to have on these because it shows that you actually have very good contact by having a fine thread. You can put more torque on that and hold it in. It's very important to have a fine thread. Here on the other side is an M14 1/5 fine thread. So having said all that, let's go and remove this. Let's face these guys off, and then let's work on assembling these and tack welding these puppies in place. So you might be asking yourself, why did I face this? Why did I face this tie rod extender piece, right? What is the purpose of doing that? Well, the reason that I face this is to ensure that I have a good flat surface contact between this guy here and the steering rack output, because there's going to be a bolt that goes through that tube and it gets connected and threaded into there, and it's going to hold that in place. That allows for the offset tie rod application. But a lot of people, a couple of very astute people have asked questions about the offset tie rod application here with respect to applying torque on this, which could potentially spin this. And that is absolutely true. So what I plan to do to alleviate that is make an indexing clocking position on here with a dowel pin. And it is I'm going to have a hole drilled right in here at the very top, 12 o'clock. And I'm going to be drilling a hole here as well. And the dowel pin is going to be inserted into the hole here. And it's going to be mated with the hole that I have installed here as well. And it'll allow you to install this in that set clocked position without preventing the exact type of torque application that you'd have here. Now, as you can see, I'm not welding on the flared arms yet that offset the tie rod itself yet, because I don't know exactly how it's going to be clocked. So I want to make sure that I install the set pin dowel first, get this set and good, and then I can understand exactly where those dowel pins the extended tie rod arms are going to end up getting installed. You can see a 2mm dowel pin installed right there. That guy is going to end up being the foundation of the clocking mechanism I'm going to use, and it will be mated with a drill that I end up putting right into there. That'll then allow this to go sit right in there, and I can clock it. If I don't like that clock, I can always drill different holes in different configurations to get the exact clocking that I want. So this is actually a pretty good, unique solution, I think, that to prevent it from spinning. and altering its, you know, abrupt change of suspension and steering geometry. Okay, so a hole has been drilled on the face of the tube, but it's a blind hole. It is not a through hole. If it was a through hole, that would be a bad thing, because then the dowel pin on the steering column output has the opportunity to work its way through and find its way loose. Even though I have the back side of the lip of the socket head on here to hold it in, I don't like that. I like the idea of this being a complete blind hole. So if I were to take this and just get it at least started, okay, now I could take this and twist it to try to find its home. There it is, I found it. Now, I can push this in. Okay, you can see that it kind of moves, does not twist, right? That's important. But that's still, I mean, it's a small 2mm pin, so you gotta be careful about that. You know, you wanna make sure that you really torque this to spec. In this case, I'm not gonna torque it to spec because I'm just test fitting. But if I did tighten it up, it is not going anywhere now. And if I put enough torque on it, yes, I could possibly break that pin, but it is a really good, safe avenue to prevent any type of shear moving this and rotating it around. So now that we have this set up, now we can install and figure out where our tie rod extender arms are going to end up getting located. So these are the two wings for the tie rod extenders, and they're going to end up getting welded something like this, or down here, or up here, but it's going to be more of an uphill location to make sure that it's perfectly level and that the tie rod is perfectly level with the lower control arm. Very important. So these guys are going to end up getting welded something like that, okay? And if you were to take this and push it all the way in, got to make sure that there's no interference along the entire length of that. And in this case here, the only interference we have is with the lower banjo bolt, but there really shouldn't be an interference with that. Just make sure that when you do weld these in, I'm going to ensure that there is no interference with the tube or the bolt. Because if we ever did have to remove these bolts to remove the power steering lines, all we'd have to do is just pull it out, and then we'd be good. So the idea here is that we install these guys at somewhat of an upward angle. I'm gonna use a angle finder to figure out what that exact angle is gonna be and use it and make sure that it's the same for both sides. So now that I got one of them tacked in, now it's time to mount the other one in the exact same location and orientation with the exact 1.5 inch difference so that the tie rods themselves will be perfectly aligned, and then I can start welding everything up and putting the cross bracing into the assembly. So now I got both of them tacked on. Actually, this one's been welded quite a bit on the inside, but this one is just tacked on, and they've been evened out. The idea here is that we now install our hardware. And the hardware goes on like this, oops, then this guy, then another one of these. It fits perfectly in there, right in the center, just like that. And these are shoulder bolts, so it's going and being held in by the shoulder of the bolt, not the screw threads. That's the important thing to note here. This guy goes on the outside, thread it on, just like that. So what we'll do is we'll tighten it up. So let's just do that. It's nice and snug. This guy will rotate freely. And now I'd like to see what it'll take to weld this back up in much more secure fashion. And then this guy is set to go. So here is the complete final assembly. Just still need to get this powder coated, but the rest of the assembly is complete. All the knuckles are welded up. The set screw is set in place to the tie rod end, and the same thing on this. I haven't gotten the links set up, but the rest of the assembly is complete. These guys are tightened with the 1/2-inch brass bushings on either side of the tie rod end. The lock nut is also set. The shoulder bolt is good, and I braced it up with a little bit more additional metal here and welded on the inside for aesthetics. So this guy is basically ready to install. You can see here the tie rod is set up here. It's at a slight upward angle that I need to measure. And that angle is approximately 6.7 degrees. Just about 7 degrees actually, no, 6.5. So now if we move this all the way in, this still has the capability to move up and down, and it can move. It does not move in any direction here. Pull it back as well. Okay, so this guy is basically completely installed. Now I'm waiting on a slower spring pad for the strut to get the spring on and do like a reveal of ride height and everything like that, in which case this will end up getting installed at that point. But for now, this is what it's gonna have to be. I've got both of the tie rods complete, and I am ready to move on to the next thing, guys. So thanks a lot for watching. My name is Frank Macaluso from Garageaholic. Please subscribe, like, comment, and tell your friends. We're getting pretty close on getting this thing to a couple of really cool, exciting videos that I'm very excited to share with you. Thanks a lot for watching. Take it easy. Later.